All right, everybody, welcome to our EKG review. So we're going to start off by just giving a clinical picture. I'm going to just put it right up here. Just to help, this is a 15-year-old athlete coming in for their physical. This is the EKG that we get. And so let's take a look. So I'm going to start by scanning the trees of the forest here in lead 2. And I see I've got this nice narrow bead, and then I've got these funky, kind of wide looking QRSs, kind of in a regular fashion they're occurring. And then I have a resumption of these same beats that are occurring, seems like a little faster than these slower, wide, complex beats. And then they resume again. So, I wonder what that could be. So let's just kind of start through our evaluation of this rhythm. And so we'll start by looking at uh, our normal QRS. So maybe I'll look at this QRS and we'll look at it up in lead 1. And I say we've got this nice P wave. So I know the atria is driving that beat. I've got a nice narrow QRS that occurs after. The P wave is upright in lead 1. I unfortunately don't get a chance to take a look at an AVF because AVF is only capturing these 3 kind of funky wide beats. But we could say it's upright in lead 1, it's upright in lead 2, and you can see that down here. I would venture to say that these are sinus, likely very much sinus beats, and the rhythm or the rate is 300, 150, 175 beats per minute, which would be kind of on par with what you would expect a sinus node to do. And so, okay, now what are these funky beats? Are these, are they aberrantly conducted atrial contractions, or are they ventricular contractions that are occurring faster? Well, let's take a look. So we know we've got these normal beats here that have a normal PR interval. They've got normal QRS duration. They've got nice normal T waves. And then all of a sudden, I look at this one and I see that it's a wide QRS. It's maybe 120 to 140 milliseconds, much wider when I compare it to its previous QRS kind of counterpart. And I want to say, okay, is this a a ventricular ectopic beat, which is essentially a PVC, except for it's not a premature ventricular contraction. It would just be some ectopic focus that is firing off in the ventricles. And how do I know that? Well, it's a wide QRS, so that makes me think that if it's wide, it's not taking the normal His-Purkinje system, which we know that a ventricular ectopic beat would not. But also, what's going on in front of the beat? Do I see atria or atrial activity? And I don't. I just see this flat baseline. And so I know that because it's a wide complex QRS and there's no P wave in front of it, this is coming from the ventricles. And we know that typically ventricular cardiac cells typically have a pacemaker where all the cells of the heart have their own pacemaker potentials. But we know that in the ventricles, they usually are very slow, and usually the intrinsic rate is 20 to 40 beats per minute. However, it appears that we have multiple of these ventricular beats that all have the same morphology. So we know they're coming from the same location, right? The same ectopic focus every time because it's creating the same morphology in the QRS as we're capturing it. And it's happening at a rate of, if I count from this QRS, 300, 150, 100, 75, 60. This is probably maybe 50 beats per minute, maybe. And so we've got this accelerated form of ventricular contractions, and actually what it's called is accelerated idioventricular rhythm. And this is kind of a paroxysmal AIVR because we see that it ends, right? It turns into our normal beats. And so this run of AIVR is occurring at 50 beats per minute, we'll say, and our normal beats are occurring at 75 beats per minute. And then, as you'll notice, it resumes. Well, this is kind of what I thought was funky when I was taking a look at the resumption of this AIVR as it happened here. And I see we've got, okay, our normal wave, P wave, we've got the next P wave. I would expect the next P wave to be kind of here. And as I'm looking across, I see this deflection right here. And do you guys see that deflection? This looks to be the start of the next P wave. However, as you can see, that happens at the same time as this ventricular contraction. So obviously that P wave did not conduct to the ventricles. So what's happening, right? The sinus node seems to be beating, and it's not like the sinus node is not working. But what did I tell you that was going on, right? Because, why is the sinus node not beating throughout any of these beats? Well, this is what's happening. We've got this, remember, 15-year-old athlete. And young people have really healthy hearts and really high vagal tone. And so let's go through a quick physiology lesson. And so, have you ever heard of the term sinus arrhythmia? Sinus arrhythmia is the change in heart rate as a result from change in inspiration, expiration. And so if you think of it, when we inspire, do it in blue, when we inspire, we decrease our intrathoracic pressure. And when we decrease that pressure, that actually allows for more venous return to the heart. And so the heart senses we have more venous return and it says, oh crap, I need to pump this. So it increases the heart rate to match the preload. And so when we inspire, especially when we're young and healthy, the parasympathetic and sympathetic innervation of the heart, we get maybe some sympathetic more than parasympathetic fibers that are firing off to tell us to increase that heart rate. On the opposite side, when we expire, we increase that thoracic pressure to help expel the air out of our lungs into the environment, which will, anytime we increase our thoracic pressure, we decrease venous return, or another way to say that is we decrease preload to the heart. And when we decrease that return, our heart says, oh, okay, I don't need to pump as much because I don't have as much blood coming. And so we get a decrease in our heart rate. And you can try this if you're young, healthy. You can actually feel your pulse, take a big, big, big inhale. And when you inhale, your heart rate will jump up. And take a big, big, big exhale, and it'll go down. And typically, that creates what we know as this sinus arrhythmia, where we have just slow variation or just some changes in the rate of our sinus node driving our rhythm as it occurs in inspiration and expiration. However, in this case, this 15-year-old, they've got something interesting going on when that occurs. And so, likely what's happening is this period right here, when their sinus node is firing off, they're inspiring. Because here, when they're inspiring, we said that when they inspire, their heart rate goes up. And so the sinus node here is picking up a pretty fast rate. And then what occurs is they transition to expiration because they're so healthy. They've got that high vagal tone, they've got high parasympathetic drive, that heart rate decreases. So that heart rate decreases, and the sinus node says, okay, I'm going to slow down. But he's got this ectopic focus that has an intrinsic rate. So this ectopic focus has an intrinsic rate of roughly 50 beats per minute. And this focus isn't altered by this expiratory change in heart rate like the sinus node is, because we know our sinus node is highly innervated by our nervous system. Ectopic focuses aren't. And so anytime this heart rate dips under 50, for however long that occurs, this ectopic focus is not suppressed any longer, because our normal P to QRS that is being generated is typically suppressing this focus when the rate is higher than 50. But when the rate drops to 50, we are no longer suppressing. So that's what's going on, is we're getting this suppression of this ectopic focus. And when we are no longer suppressing it, we get these runs of accelerated idioventricular rhythm. So this individual would serve well by getting like an electrophysiologic study and figure out maybe where is his focus. Maybe we could radio ablate it. So that's our EKG. Hope you enjoyed it.